very much, Tanaya, for that introduction. And the only black belt I have is this one. Okay. Those of you who know me, who've known me over the years, have noticed that perhaps I've been growing some bit of hair. I usually bald, but I decided to experiment a little bit and start growing some hair. Mostly because of the younger girls, they start to figure out that it's not a style, it's a balding thing. Right? And the other reason for that is because they say that a man who's balding in the front is a thinker. A man who balds at the back here is a lover. And the man who balds right in the middle here is a man who thinks he's a lover. But anyway, today I'm going to be speaking on conflict resolution. I'm going to be speaking from the Leadership Excellence series. The Leadership Excellence series is a series of presentations that focus mostly on leadership and leadership qualities that we can use within our Toastmasters club and outside of our club. So today I decided to focus on conflict resolution. Why conflict resolution? 2 weeks ago, I was involved in a conflict. So I work for myself. I've got a small IT security business. And so I speak to a lot of partners, I speak to a lot of vendors, customers, and whatnot. And then I went to a meeting with a supplier and we ended up in a conflict. I only realized it was a conflict at the end of it. When I asked the guy, do you want to talk about this? And he said, no, I don't want to talk, and he escorted me out of the building. So I thought it'd be great for us to perhaps look at conflict resolution and how to deal with conflict. As a leader, you always need to deal with conflict, and also as a leader, you're also a follower at times, and you need to be able to handle conflict. Conflict is something that's going to come up in our lives regardless of what you do. You can't always live a happy life in Umtata where there's no conflict and whatnot. At some point, you will face conflict, whether it's at work, at school, at the gym, or even in your home. Okay? And the unfortunate thing about conflict is that conflict has a negative connotation. People think conflict is bad. People always associate conflict with that, with bad results. You got beat down, there's war, there's this. But conflict isn't always bad. Sometimes conflict is a good thing. Right? Especially conflict resolution leads to positive results. Unresolved conflict leads to negative results. Right? Conflict in itself is not a problem. It's how you deal with it, whether you resolve it or not resolve it, which leads to bad results. Okay. So, what is conflict? Conflict is when two or more people have a difference of opinion, which can actually either be factual or perceived. It doesn't have to be real. Okay? We can have differences that are false or not real, but that can result in conflict. Okay? So what is conflict resolution? Conflict resolution is the process whereby you identify conflict and you address conflict in a very professional and mature way. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about how you identify conflict and how you deal with it in a professional, mature way. Is everybody happy with that explanation of what conflict is? Okay. So I mentioned earlier that I got involved in conflict, and only at the end did I realize there was a conflict. Because when you are conflicting, sometimes you get emotional, sometimes it's a competition of egos, and at that time I was also training for my competition, so I was in a very aggressive mode. It was my way or the highway. No, not steroids. So you need to identify when you're in conflict. Okay, for me, that's the most important thing. If there's anything to take away from this presentation, is the ability to identify when you're actually in a conflict situation. Right. So how do you do this? There are 4 types of conflict. So you might find yourself in a conflict situation, and you can identify the type, which will also help you identify how to resolve it. Because you don't resolve all conflict in the same manner. It's not the same, right? So there's 4 types. The first type is caused by personality differences. Some people suck. Okay? People are different. We come from different cultural backgrounds, different upbringings, parenting. So many different things have made up the personality that you have today. And some personalities are not that great to work with. Some examples can be, you could either be one of these personalities I'm about to identify, or you know someone who has a personality like this. There is the know-it-all, okay? The guy who knows everything. You can never tell him anything about anything that he will actually say, oh wow, I did not know that. This is interesting. I had a boss once where he was a know-it-all, and whatever idea you gave him, whatever you said, he will spin it and then tell it to you as if it came out of it. So he never got any credit. He never agreed that he was wrong. You know, he was a know-it-all. Okay? And you also have people who are aggressive. Again, I worked in an environment where there was this one lady, 4 years ago. She was very aggressive. The whole team couldn't speak to her. Because if you ask for anything, it's always, no, I don't want it. It's a very aggressive personality. Okay? And everything was an argument with her. Okay? And then people didn't want to work with that person, and it always led to conflict. Funny enough, a few days ago, I had to interview for a job. So sometimes conflict can come back and bite you in the back. So personalities, difference in personalities can cause conflict. That's the first thing. The first type of conflict, based on personality differences. The second type is based on issues. Okay? What are issues? When I was preparing this presentation and it said issues, I also got a bit confused because issues can be a lot of things. But when we speak of issues in a team, we're speaking about perhaps different objectives, okay? Different ideas. So you're part of a project, the one person has a different expectation from you. The client expects you to do 25 things. You believe you only need to do 2. All right? That different level of expectation can result in conflict. Or even objectives. People have different objectives in any project or any organization. Some people are there to learn, some people are there for the billable hours, right? And then some people are there just to spend the day away from home. So those kind of issues can result in conflict. Next is misunderstandings. Okay. Sometimes conflict arises genuinely because of a misunderstanding. I said we meet at 7. You thought PM, I meant AM. Okay? Misunderstandings happen because of miscommunication or because the facts were wrong. Generally, when conflict arises because of a misunderstanding, it's very easy to resolve it. If I give you the facts, you'll be like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. I thought you meant, then it's all. That's if it doesn't escalate very quickly. But sometimes, even when people get presented with the facts, because their egos have been hurt, they still want to fight you. But if you can catch it early, reveal the facts, and say, this is actually what I meant, this is the communication I really meant, you can actually resolve that conflict. So this is conflict that arises from misunderstandings. It happens a lot between husband and wives. The fourth type of conflict is leadership styles. Okay? As a leader, you've got your own style of leadership. Followers also have their own style of following. Sometimes there's a mismatch. We might all want to believe that democracy is the way forward, that in every situation we must vote, but there are some followers who do not like making decisions. They don't like being asked to vote on a topic. And if you keep on asking them, what do you think? What do you think as a leader? They will say, man, that guy's indecisive. He can never make a decision. You always have to tell him what to do. Because you're a democratic leader, but the followers are not. Or you could be a dictator. you've got that, my opinion is what it is, and it stays. Some people are happy with that. Oh, I like my boss, he tells me exactly what to do, when to do, how to do it. Great. Some people don't like that. They want to be able to choose and decide and have that freedom. So when it comes to leadership styles, you need to at least have an understanding of your style so that when you conflict with someone, you can kind of discern, is it because of my leadership style and their following style? Or is it because of another type of conflict that is coming up here? And as a leader, I mentioned earlier on that as a leader, you're also a follower. So as a follower, you need to understand that my leader is this type of leader. He might be a charismatic leader like Obama. Everybody says Obama's always happy and this, but he does nothing. No action. But it's not. Some people are happy with the way he leads. So as a leader who becomes a follower, you need to be able to understand that sometimes there's a mismatch. So those are the 4 types of conflict, based on personalities, based on issues, based on leadership styles, and who can tell me the 4th one?
Misunderstandings.
There you go. Okay, you guys are listening. Great.
Never write that.
All right, so now that we know the type of conflict, so next time something when you feel a bit emotional or something's going on in a meeting and you raise your voice or something, just give it a pause and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Or you get that email that is very suspect and you feel like replying or things are going on in the work. Pause and try to identify what type of conflict is happening here, because then that will determine how you resolve it. So now, how do we resolve conflict? There's a few ways. The first way is to ignore it. You don't have to address it. You can just let it go. As a leader, sometimes some conflict is not worth your time. Okay? If we say we're going to have dinner here and we can't decide whether it's pizza or tacos, I really don't care. So some conflicts are not worth your time in resolving, so you can actually ignore it, and the team can deal with it by themselves. It's petty or whatever it is. So you can actually ignore that conflict. That's the first way of dealing with conflict. Or you can try and smooth it over. Use your leadership abilities, your communication abilities. Let's just smooth it over between parties and say, hey man, I think maybe you should look at this and that, and just try and talk it through. Again, these are maybe some of the minor conflicts. You can't smooth over Syria, Okay? As the conflict type escalates, obviously you approach differently. You can also either force a decision or force a resolution. Right? So when you're looking at conflict resolution, always remember that there's also power dynamics to be aware of. Right? You can't force your CEO to do anything. Even though, Christian told me that this is the way of no. Okay? As a leader, you can say, this is the way it's going to be. We have a job to do. You need to put your emotions aside and listen to what I'm saying and resolve a conflict between 2 people. And then that could work. But what generally happens with that is somebody needs to lose. There's a loser and a winner. And nobody wants to be a loser. Nobody wants to work with a loser. Okay, so that will already spoil the team dynamics if you force a decision on them. If it has to be done, it has to be done. Just for the work to get done, right? Another way would be compromise. Because when people are arguing, someone has to compromise, right? So you make both of the parties compromise something. They give up something to make each other happy, and then we move forward. The problem with compromise is that now you have a lose-lose situation. Now you've got 2 losers who didn't get what they wanted, working in a team. And that will mess up your team dynamics. Okay? It will affect morale, it will affect productivity, because now they're just forced to do this. The best way to deal with conflict resolution is collaboration. Okay? Collaboration is when you actually get the parties together and say, guys, we've got a problem here, we've got this conflict, let's all figure out how we can resolve it and move forward. What happens when you collaborate to come up with a solution to conflict is that you come up with win-win solutions, right? And a win-win scenario is good for everybody. It uplifts the team spirit, morale, and everybody comes back together. Okay. So those are the different ways of dealing with conflict. You can either ignore it, you can try and smooth it over, you can force it on people, you can compromise, you can collaborate. Which one do you use? It all depends, again, on the power dynamics that are going on, how serious it is. In my opinion, I feel like if people are willing to collaborate to resolve conflict, that's already 50% of the work done. It means that they are open, they understand this conflict, they need to work on it. So collaboration is always where you want to take it, but don't get it wrong. Conflict resolution doesn't mean that both parties know that we are doing conflict resolution. You don't say, hey, wait a minute, sir, we got a conflict here, let's resolve it. Let me just take out my type of conflict. And sometimes you, as a leader, need to figure out how to resolve the conflict, even if the other person doesn't know. You need to figure out how to either reach a compromise with the other party or ignore it, whatever, however you deal with it, everybody might not know, especially if you're conflicting with someone who's senior, with more power. Okay? They won't want to listen to your ideas about conflict resolution, so you need to kind of figure out a way of bringing it in there. So now, I gave you a few ways of dealing with conflict, but I'm going to dig deeper into collaboration. How do you collaborate to resolve conflict? So I'm thinking of a scenario where it's a big organization, there's conflict happening, the project manager and the solutions architect and the finance manager are not getting along. Conflict has come up because we've got different strategic objectives, different policies. Then they've asked you, they heard that you go to the Johannesburg Toastmasters Club and you are familiar with conflict resolution. How do you get that resolved? Through collaboration. So the first thing you need to do when you're resolving conflict via collaboration is obviously get the people in a room, get them all together, okay? And try and assess for yourself what the root cause of that conflict is. Just try and hear their stories before you go into the room and kind of figure out what exactly is the issue. What type of conflict is this? Use all these techniques that I've taught you now to kind of identify where you are in that conflict matrix. Then once you're sitting at the table, give everyone an opportunity to speak about what their problems are. Because sometimes in conflicts, people just want to speak and be heard. Right? And allowing them to speak helps everyone else understand where they're coming from. The third thing you need to do is get the other people to listen to what everyone is saying. How do you do this? You ask the speaker to expand on something. So wait a minute, you mean that day you actually were upset about something? Because maybe the other people won't ask, but you as a facilitator need to draw out that information or even ask, like, Emil, did you get that? And then and then you ask her to repeat, exactly. Force the other people to listen. And then once everybody has spoken and people have listened, it means all the issues are out in the clear, we understand how each person feels and where we are. What's the next step? Let's put together what exactly we're disagreeing on. Write it down on a piece of paper. Right? Let's identify 3 areas that we are actually disagreeing on. Is it the pricing? Is it the resources, the human resources? Or is it the timelines? Whatever it is, your project organization that you're disagreeing on as a team, let's identify that. So that we've got a common understanding of where the issues are coming from. After that, let's agree on what we actually agree on. Guys, we want this project delivered on time. Do we all want that? Yes. Guys, we want to save the company this much. Do we all agree? Yes. Let's find out what the common objectives are so that we can use that to conquer the disadvantages or the disagreements. Once you've done that, we know what the disagreement is about, we know what to agree on. Now we are all on the same table. The next step is identifying a solution. The way you identify a solution is through brainstorming. Pass around a piece of paper, okay? Everybody write down your idea, what you think, how you think we can solve these disagreements. Everybody writes it down, and then at the end we review these ideas as a team, and we all agree on which of those ideas we think are best as a team. And so you can see the journey is like bringing out information about how people feel, what the problems are, and goes to the solution of the conflict. Then at the end, what you have is a consensus. Do we all agree that this is what we're disagreeing about? This is what we agree about. This is where we think we should be going, and these are the ideas to solve this problem. Are we all happy? Well, are we? Yes. There we go. After that, you implement the solution. And in an ideal world, that should be enough to resolve whatever conflict that you're having. that you're having. Okay? You might have to do it 1 or 2 more times, but that's the collaborative way of conflict resolution. Right. So, in conclusion, conflict resolution is something that you're definitely going to face at some point. Right? And you will have to deal with it. Your personality can determine how you deal with it, or you can use some of the skills that we've learned here. What I did a few years ago, I was off the cuff. I didn't even realize it was a conflict. By the time I realized it was a conflict, I was outside, I was like, oh wait, I think I learned about this. So if there's one thing that I'd like you guys to take away from this is calm down and try to identify when you're in a conflict situation. That's half the job. Just to identify that, wait a minute, this is conflict. Then how you deal with it, how you approach it, is something else different. But knowing is actually half the battle. Yeah. So Toastmasters, thank you.
Thank you, Christian.